It's time to revisit some of the most radical, fated, important changes that we've been making over the last 1.5 years. That's because Mercury is going to be retrograde and it's highlighting the energy of Uranus, which is a big, major shakeup energy, the Great Awakener, and the energy of the North Node, which throws us into a fated, brand new direction in the sign of Taurus. This time around, though, we might be revisiting areas where maybe changes were meant to occur, or we felt like they were meant to occur, but they didn't. There were blockages, there were hardships, there were challenges that prevented us from moving forward in order to create the change that we really wanted to make. This is the time where we're going to be revisiting those energies, removing those blockages, and finally moving forward with greater freedom, greater ability to spread our wings, to do the things that we want to do in the way that we want to do them, to change things that have been stuck, slow, monotonous, boring, and mundane for far too long. I love this Mercury energy. However, it is going to be a bit of a shakeup if you hadn't already noticed from what I've been saying. And so this is not going to be a comfortable energy, especially for those who don't like change and who are really, cozy in their comfort zones. And maybe the reason that you didn't change the first or second or third time around over the past couple of years is because you were comfortable. You didn't want to change necessarily, even though the universe seemed to be begging you to move forward, begging you to move on. What keeps you stuck, what keeps you stagnant might be your own inner dialogue. It might be your own fears and anxieties around shifting things in a way that's going to push you past your comfort zones. And this Mercury retrograde is going to give you one final chance to jump in and do it. And if you don't jump in and do it on your own, this Mercury retrograde will make sure that the circumstances come in externally to throw you for a loop, to shake things up, to disrupt the status quo in a way that's going to be way less comfortable than it's already going to be if you do it yourself. And so this is a really important time to think through and think about all of the things that you've changed, especially in the area that we'll be talking about in the All Signs forecast over the past 1.5 to 2 years. The reason for this is because we've been having this energy of Uranus conjunct the North Node. The North Node's actually about to be moving on and moving into the sign of Aries in July. So we just had this big eclipse that highlighted the North Node moving on. And this is the final really big energy during this eclipse season and during this Mercury retrograde that's going to be propelling us forward with anything that we have yet to jump into, anything that is part of our destiny, anything that we truly need to align ourselves with that is disrupting. Again, it's like the status quo. It is that Taurus energy. Anything that is slow moving, that is comfortable, that we think is very stable in our lives is not going to be very stable during this time period. And it's going to be something that we already know is coming, or that we've already had some disruption in, or maybe an energy around wanting to disrupt it ourselves. That could be a big part of it too. But maybe just not taking advantage of it, or not being able to take advantage of it, because Saturn has been in the sign of Aquarius for the past 2.5 years until March, when it moved into the sign of Pisces. And so this is a big highlighting of Uranus and a big highlighting of the North Node without Saturn there hindering us, slowing us down, saying no, stopping us in our tracks. And so now is a time where we can finally have the freedom. We can break free from any cages we've built for ourselves. We can break free from anything that is slowing our momentum, anything that is stuck or stagnant that it's just not serving us anymore. So this is a great energy overall for those things. But again, it's not going to be a comfortable, cozy, just sitting back and relaxing sort of energy with this Mercury retrograde. This is going to stimulate the need for change. And if change comes up for you during this Mercury retrograde period, don't avoid it, especially if it's change that you're revisiting. If it's something that has come up multiple times, if it's something that you've thought about in the past, but you haven't actually been able to take advantage of prior to this Mercury retrograde, if it's something that you've tried to move forward with, that you've tried to adjust in your life, but for some reason it just wouldn't stick, now's the time to redo it, revisit it, to figure out what the blockages actually are. That's what Mercury retrogrades are for. It's a good time for reflecting and refining and reorganizing and revisiting all of the little details that are preventing you from, again, making that change. This is all about change, even though it's in the sign of Taurus, which Taurus likes stability. So it's about, a lot of it's going to be about breaking free from our internal comfort zones and our need for stability on a tangible physical level to make physical tangible changes. And the changes that come up will be very material in nature. And so this could be anything from needing to change jobs, needing to make a major purchase, needing to change something about your finances. This could be, needing to make a change that involves your physicality, your body, your place of living. All of these things could be a part of this energy because it's Taurus. It is a fixed earth sign. It's the most grounded, tangible things in our lives that we're going to be seeking reprieve from, that we're going to be seeking to shift and alter in really major ways. It's kind of like this has been building, and now it's the last chance. And so it's going to be happening. A lot of it could be happening all at once if you've been kind of hindered in whatever way. And so that's a big kind of energy that's happening here. And of course, throughout the entire Mercury retrograde period, which lasts from April 21st through May 14th, all of the normal Mercury retrograde rules apply. So this is a really great time for reorganizing something, revisiting something that you need to kind of take a second glance at or a second pass at. This could be a really great time for relaunching something. This could be a really great time for, review, re-edit, all of those words, going back, reversing, and kind of redoing something. What this is not good for, unless you are a natal Mercury retrograde person, is starting something brand new or launching into something that requires a lot of attention to detail, a lot of really strict, punctual deadlines. All of those things aren't going to work as well, even with Mercury in Taurus, which tends to be quite punctual. And Mercury in Taurus tends to move through things very slowly. And so another thing that you might notice, especially if you have a lot of Taurus energy or a lot of fixed energy in your chart, is that Mercury, especially as it's stationing, which is happening right now as you're watching this and will happen again around May 14th. So when it's at its slowest speeds in the sign of Taurus, our brains are going to be slowing down. We're going to have to think things through much more carefully. In fact, we're going to be forced to. We're not going to be able to think as quickly and as rapidly and give answers and responses and decisions as rapidly as we normally can. And so slowing down your pace, slowing down your cadence, slowing down your movement, that's all really wonderful with Mercury in the sign of Taurus. Normally, Mercury in Taurus is actually great for the nervous system because it tends to be more parasympathetic active. So what I mean by that is, it's more of a slow moving, relaxed, kind of chill Mercury. Mercury has an association with the brain and the nervous system. And so it's not typically an energy that's overstimulating. However, with Mercury stationing to go retrograde in an exact conjunction with Uranus, which is happening on the 21st, so the day before you're watching this video, if you're watching it as it's, coming out, it's going to feel like we're very frazzled and scattered. It's like we thought we had our feet on solid ground, but that's somehow being disrupted. It's like almost as if we're having like a mini little earthquake underneath us. And, we have to kind of like get our bearings before we can start walking straight again. So that's part of the energy. So you might be feeling a little bit more amped up, a little bit more on edge. Not as bad as it would be if Uranus were if Mercury was conjunct Uranus in like a fire sign or an air sign or maybe even a water sign, but it's still a part of this energy. And some of that restlessness that you're going to be feeling is going to be centered again around things that are very tangible, very real, very concrete. So especially things like food, finance, housing, health, all of those things that are foundational to our material existence. The other thing too is that Mercury will station to go direct on the 14th in an exact conjunction with the North Node. And so that's another big energy because as I mentioned before, the North Node has been transiting Taurus for about a year and a half now. It's about to move on. And so we've been going through these like periods of big changes that have spanned over the course of these 1.5 years, where each time the North Node gets activated, it's another chapter in this story that's putting us forward into our destiny, into something that's meant for us. Whether or not we feel comfortable with it, whether or not we like it in the moment, that's another story, but it is meant to be. It's something that was set up for us prior to incarnating. That's what the North Node is all about. And it's something that we might feel afraid of doing, but we also feel this almost insatiable urge to jump into, to actually do it, to take hold of it. And so now's a time where if you haven't taken hold of it, you absolutely will. And so kind of backtracking before we get into the all signs forecast so we can cover everything that's going on in the retrograde sequentially. So Mercury actually went into its shadow period on April 7th, but its first conjunction to the North Node was on April 5th. So thinking back to April 5th and what was going on for you around that week, really, that's going to give you a clue, especially if you had like a fated message, a really important idea, a communication or a connection that came in around that time that felt a little extra important or significant or different, or even if you had a dream that was really like in your face, like it was like, this is clearly a message, but I don't know if I'm quite getting it. That type of stuff is really important anytime the nodes are activated. And so thinking around that time period, especially if you're somebody who journals or something like that, you can go back and look. That's going to give you a clue as to what's going to come up in a bigger, really, really profound way around May 14th, which is when Mercury stations to go direct. That's when it's going to be in a conjunction with the North Node again. And so that's part of what's going on here. Mercury, of course, as I mentioned before, is stationing retrograde in a conjunction with the moon and Uranus. And I actually have images of these stations and all of that right here. And so this is going to be a really prevalent day in the astrology for the fixed signs and the fixed energies. And this is when you could have a really important message that comes up out of the blue that's kind of shocking, that forces you to shift, to change, to pivot, to do something differently. And it's not something to act on immediately. It's something more to sit with, I would say, because this is Mercury stationing. Mercury's not really moving forward just yet. And it'll come back. So don't worry. Like Mercury is going to come back into that space again, as it moves through the sign of Taurus before it actually leaves the sign of Taurus after its post shadow, I believe, like shortly after. That's when it'll hit it again. And so this is an ongoing situation that begins in April, that, gets really amped up when Mercury stations on April 21st and doesn't fully resolve until June. So, keep track of what's going on here. Pay attention because some of it might be subtle for some of you. And for others, it might just be like huge, like, oh, this is like in my face. Like I have to pay attention to this. The other things that are going on are that Mars is going to be in Cancer, sextiling the Mercury retrograde. That's going to be happening at the time that Mercury stations, and it'll come super exact on April 23rd. That's actually really nice, especially because, Mars in Cancer is in its fall. It's not the nicest placement for Mars. And if you've been hit really hard in the cardinal signs by Mars, this is actually alleviating it, and it's giving you an outlet for like a mental outlet for sorting something out to deal with an acute situation that's maybe causing a lot of friction or weighing on you in some way. So I really like that. And that's going to be ongoing at the beginning of that Mercury retrograde. So the first week. May 1st is when Mercury actually goes Cazimi. And so that's a really important period for gaining insight into something really significant that might be able to help you when it comes to this journey of removing these blockages and making the changes you've been seeking out in this area of life where, the changes need to happen. They maybe have started, but they're not all the way there yet. You're going to figure out exactly what you need to do to get it to go all the way there. And to finally have that freedom, because this is going to be an energy of really craving a lot of freedom, a lot of mobility. People are going to be seeking to cut ties with things that are very materialistic and tangible in order to have greater ability to kind of flow and go with the flow. And so that's going to be a big part of this too. Mercury is also going to sextile Saturn in Pisces, and that's going to be really prevalent at the end of the Mercury retrograde when Mercury stations to go direct, actually. And it's also going to be Venus sextile. So there's 2 sextiles on either side, and I can show you right here. Where you can actually see that Saturn is at 6 degrees in the sign of Pisces. We have Mercury stationing at 5 degrees in a very close conjunction with the North Node in the sign of Taurus. And then we have Venus at 8 degrees also forming a sextile with Mercury. This is actually really nice. So I think at the end of this Mercury retrograde, it's kind of like we get a very a big burst of energy that propels us into something. But with that Venus, that really beautiful Venus energy, with that Saturn energy supporting us, making it very tangible, making it very long lasting, making sure that we're getting all of our ducks in a row and doing it in a way that is providing a good foundation, right, for the future. And also, using a bit of intuition to manifest and to navigate as well, I would say. I really like this energy for all of those things. So yeah, I'm not, this isn't the worst Mercury retrograde, even with all of the chaos and all of the Uranus and North Node activations. Yes, it's disruptive, but there are these like subtle, gentle influences that are helping us along and that are ensuring that we move in the right direction in a way that's not going to be super jarring and super chaotic for us. So as long as you're ready to embrace the change that's coming up for you, I think this could absolutely be wonderful for a lot of people. And so, yeah, that's kind of the spiel for the general forecast. Before we get into the forecast for all 12 signs, I just want to talk about what you can focus on a little bit more in your own birth chart in order to just get a more holistic overview of the energy for the week ahead, or the 3 weeks ahead, right? Because this is until May 14th. And so first and foremost, you want to make sure that you're listening to your rising sign, your sun sign, and your moon sign to get a more holistic overview of the energy for the next couple of weeks. You also want to make sure that you recognize that your rising sign is the most predominant energy, your sun sign is secondary, and the moon sign is important to listen to as well, although this energy will be more internalized and subjective. You also want to make sure you download my Astrology 101 PDF guide absolutely for free. Link is down below, and go through and look and see which planets you have in the earth signs first. So the earth signs are Taurus. Those are going to be where you have the biggest changes, and also Virgo and Capricorn. And so look to see what planets you have in those signs, and then look in the Astrology 101 PDF guide to see what the significations are of those planets. Those planetary topics, themes, and significations are going to be subject to very gentle, but like positively disruptive change where it feels really good for you, where it feels like, yes, this is my moment. I finally get this freedom. I finally get to make this happen. And also look at those planets in the earth signs and what houses they rule. So what I mean by that is the planet that rules the sign that occupies the house. And so if you have Mars in an earth sign, you want to look to see what houses are occupied by Aries and Scorpio in whole sign houses. The significations of those houses will also be subject to change, and but really like graceful, really beautiful, really harmonious change, where it's like you're finally revisiting something, and you know now that you're revisiting it for the final last time, and that this is going to work for you. Then you want to look at the fixed signs. So the fixed signs, of course, are Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius. And so you want to see what planets you have in those signs. And those planetary energies, those significations in the Astrology 101 PDF guide are going to be subject to the most disruptive and kind of rattling changes that you're probably already going to know that they're coming. These aren't new things with Mercury in retrograde. These are things that you're revisiting that are kind of like, all right, this just needs to happen. But it's not going to happen in a gentle way. It's not going to happen in a way that's just like flowing in harmony like it will with the earth signs. The other thing with the fixed planets too that you want to look at is those planets that are in the fixed signs, which signs do they rule and which houses are occupied by those signs. And those houses are going to be subject to that same sort of jarring change that in the moment does not feel comfortable or pleasant. But especially with this North Node energy in the mix, it's going to take you where you need to go. And it's going to get you there quickly. It's like the shortcut version. like where you have to go over a lot of rough and rocky terrain, but in the end, you get there faster and you get where you need to go. It's just you're a little frazzled from the journey. All right. And so let's get into the forecast for all 12 signs, beginning, of course, with Aries and Aries rising. So for Aries and for Aries rising, Mercury retrograde is going to have you revisiting a change that maybe you've been wanting to make or needing to make when it comes to your material possessions, your finances, your money. This could be that there's a shakeup that came up for you earlier on that you have to kind of make some additional adjustments with when it comes to your financial situation, or it could be something that you've been thinking about doing but hasn't actually materialized just yet, where it's kind of like you've been thinking about it, you've been mulling it over, maybe you've had some opportunities come your way, but you haven't taken advantage just yet, either due to your own fears and anxieties or due to maybe fear about what other people might think about what you're doing, because Saturn was transiting your 11th house, which is the house of social networks and, caring about those types of things. And so, now's a time, especially around the time that Mercury is stationing, where it's going to become very apparent what you need to break free from, especially when it comes to stuck, stagnant, stale energy around money, your spending habits, your budget, and the things that you own. Maybe you're going to want to sell a bunch of stuff so that way you can move on and maybe have some more money to enjoy your freedom. Maybe you're going to sell some stuff so you don't have so many attachments, so you can go off and do something really exciting. It just kind of depends on where you're at with that. And throughout the retrograde, this is a really great time to rebalance your budget, to revisit your spending habits, to review kind of what you've been doing financially, review your investments even. And at the time that Mercury stations to go direct, this is where a fated change could come up for you, or a fated opportunity that you feel really excited, really intense about, almost like insatiable in your quest for pursuing it. And it's something that might have come up for you around April 5th in a smaller way, either through a message, a download, a dream, or through an actual like conversation with somebody, or maybe just through an idea. But now it's time to really start to think about making that manifest around the time that Mercury goes direct on May 14th. For Taurus and for Taurus rising. So for Taurus, this energy is all about you. So you've been going through a lot of really interesting changes over the past couple of years, Taurus. It's been like everything's been turned upside down for you. You've been moving forward, taking 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, 3 steps sideways, standing on your head, and then doing it all over again. It's kind of like you've been wanting to change everything about your life, but up until the past couple of months, the change has been coming in bursts, and there have been a lot of blockages, a lot of hardships, a lot of challenges that may have prevented you from really going all in. A lot of those challenges to really becoming who you are and who you are meant to be out in the world, and caring less about what other people think about that, might have come through your work or through people in positions of power and authority. Luckily, now that energy has moved on, and so when Mercury stations to go retrograde, you're going to feel intuitively, and you're going to know internally through your brain and your logic what the next steps are. This is a time where you're going to feel very rebellious. You might also want to just think carefully before you speak and open your mouth about something, because you're likely to say something, or more likely to say something, that's going to shock people in a way that's rather disruptive, that could cause issues for you later on, especially after Mercury goes direct and revisits that. So it's kind of like saying something on the spur of the moment, or agreeing to something on the spur of the moment around the time of Mercury stationing retrograde on the 21st, and then kind of having to backtrack and change those plans, or maybe even apologize for what you've said, depending on what it is. And so you just want to be aware. When Mercury stations to go direct, it's going to be hitting that energy in Taurus at 3 and 5 degrees, because we're going to have the North Node at 3 degrees. This is your last chance to move into your destiny. kind of a big deal, right? You're not going to get another chance like this, another opportunity like this for another 18 and a half years. And so you want to make sure that you're taking advantage of the opportunities that come up for you. If you feel really pulled towards something, if you feel like something is meant to be yours, this is the time to pursue it. This is the last chance to pursue it, because the nodes are moving on in July, and Mercury is highlighting the need to revisit something that maybe came up for you, but it never fully unfolded or manifested prior to this period. Now's the time to go all in. This could also be highlighting the need to change something in relationships, or the need to let go of an important contract, agreement, or relationship in order to make headway when it comes to the things that you need, you want, you desire, when it comes to bettering yourself and furthering your own goals. And so, yeah, there's a lot going on here. Mercury is stationing to go direct also in a square with Pluto. Worth mentioning, right? And so there could be power struggles, issues coming up pertaining to people in positions of power and authority, issues coming up pertaining to your work and work-related issues. It's kind of like that Saturnian energy came in and caused a lot of blockages and challenges and hardships in that area. And now's a time where Pluto is going to cause a revolutionary energy where you're going to want to transform that. I could see a lot of Taurus rising people like quitting their jobs, or, moving long distance, or ending relationships, or ending important work-related contracts very abruptly around the time that Mercury stations to go direct. Just make sure that you're giving it a little bit of time. When Mercury is stationing, there's not a lot of momentum. That's where it's going to be peak intensity, where psychologically, emotionally, like when it weighs on your nervous system, it's going to feel like, I can't take this anymore. And then as it moves forward, that's the time to actually release. With Gemini and Gemini rising, Mercury stations to go retrograde in your 12th house, which is the house of endings and letting things go. It's also the house of basically everything that goes on subconsciously. It's the house of your dreams. It's the house of sleep. It's the house of spirituality and spiritual practices. It's the hidden house where you do things in secret. This could have you revisiting some sort of unusual form of study, or some sort of unusual practice spiritually that maybe you have left behind, or you didn't really feel comfortable fully embracing because you had some ideological issues with it, or some issues with your beliefs around it. And now's a time where that's not going to be a hindrance anymore. It's going to show you what you need to do there. I would say for Gemini in particular, especially around the 21st, 22nd, 23rd of April, you could have some really intense downloads, some really intense dreams, some really intense things that come up to you in meditation and in contemplation. So make sure that you're taking time to just kind of like down-regulate your nervous system, to spend time in solitude and in your own energy, because a lot of headway will be made through just being quiet and listening and paying attention to what's coming up, because there's a message for you. And it's an important one. It's especially a message that could be leading to you finally closing the door on something, or finally letting go of a cycle or a pattern once and for all. And then when Mercury goes direct, it's going to be in a conjunction with the North Node. It's squaring Pluto. This could be a really intense need to purge, or a really intense need to turn inward and spend time on your own to think something through. This could also be a faded message that comes up that had been in secret, and it sort of comes out into the open. Something could be revealed to you around the time Mercury goes direct in May, especially if you already had an inkling of this at the beginning of April, but something could come up to you for you around like a teacher, or somebody who you look up to as like being knowledgeable or wise in some way, where you realize maybe they didn't have the wisdom that they said that they did, or that there's something kind of amiss here, or it doesn't align with your value systems. In general, there's some sort of message or some sort of revelation that comes up around this time, where there's something really important in your life that does not align with your value systems, and you need to transform it, purge it, and let it go. For Cancer and for Cancer rising. So for Cancer, luckily this Mercury energy is actually going to be lightening the load and softening the Mars in your first house that's been a little intense. So, when Mars transits your first house, you can feel really agitated, really on edge, really feisty. You could wind up in a lot of arguments that you think maybe are not your fault, but typically they are kind of caused by you in one way or another. It could just be your tone and you don't realize it when Mars is transiting your first house. Either way, it's kind of an agitating energy. And so Mercury stationing is giving you an outlet for that, where maybe you can vent or talk to your friends or go out and have some sort of social gathering, social connection that helps relieve or alleviate some of that pressure. Also, when Mars is in your first house, it's a good time to make sure you move your body. It's a time where you're more prone to minor injuries and like stubbing your toe and things like that. So you want to make sure as you're moving your body, you're not just like jerking around all crazy. You want to make sure that you're pacing yourself and you're mindful of your movement, but it is an important time to move. But either way, with this Mercury retrograde energy, this is a time where you're going to be revisiting changes or new beginnings or something that needs to shift for you when it comes to your social networks, when it comes to your group associations, when it comes to your choice of friends. You want people who are a little bit more rebellious, a little less dull, people that aren't just sitting around watching TV and, doing the status quo mainstream thing. This is an energy of wanting to branch out and to find your tribe and to find some people who are a little bit different, right? You're not looking for friendships with normies right now. And so this could come up where there's an energy of revisiting an old friendship that maybe fell by the wayside, and maybe that person has changed, their ideals have changed, you have changed, and now you need to reintegrate that person in some way. This could also be an energy of a new friendship that maybe you had a chance encounter with a person, or you met them already once before, but you didn't actually integrate that. It didn't become a full-blown like friendship. It's just an acquaintance. And then you meet this person again and you're like, wow, like we have a lot in common. We should totally, talk more about this or we should create some sort of club or social group or something like that. And that could be an energy of revisiting those things as well, especially if it's a group of, where it's maybe like an activist group or something like that. That could actually be really good, like a grassroots activist sort of situation. And then when Mercury stations to go direct, this is a time where there could be power struggles. There could be very faded, intense energy that comes up for you in the middle of May around your friendships, around your group associations, around your connections with other people. It could even be not necessarily about your public reputation, but about your reputation amongst your friends, where it causes you to branch out and do something new. There could be a new friendship that comes up for you, but there could be something like a little sinister or a little intense about that connection that doesn't really sit well or sit right. And that's something definitely to pay attention to, because there is an energy of power and control issues involving friends, involving social networks. It's something that's come up already in the past for you, maybe with a person or a group of people, but finally, once and for all, it's like revealed to you and you're like, okay, I need to move on from this. I need to change this. I need to do something different. I need to do something new. This is a time where faded new friendships can come in for the better as well. But it's probably going to be like people you already know, but there's a new situation that's very karmic that sort of turns things upside down. For Leo and for Leo rising. So for Leo, Mercury stationing to go retrograde in your 10th house of career and public reputation. And so there are changes you've been wanting to make, Leo, with your career and with your work and the way that you show up in the world, even if you're not somebody who's working. This is about the energy you put out there for the world at large, the impact that you make on the world around you and the way that you're recognized or maybe not recognized for that. And so there's been a person or a contract or an agreement over the past couple of years that may have been hindering you from actually moving forward with the changes that you want to make when it comes to your career goals and plans, when it comes to the legacy that you want to leave behind after your working years, when it comes to the impact you want to make on the world, where that person, that someone, that something, when it comes to a contractual agreement, has been blocking you or causing you to doubt yourself or to fear making the change that you need to make for you. You need freedom in your career. You need the ability to do whatever you want to do whenever you want to do it in the way that you know will best serve whoever you're trying to help. And this is an energy that's going to allow that to be. And so I love that. What's interesting here is that an important message could come through out of the blue around the time that Mercury stations. It could be a job offer or an opportunity for you. However, with Mercury in retrograde, it's not going to be exactly what you think it's going to be. There's going to be a lot of negotiation and a lot of like pivoting. So it's not going to stick. It's not going to stay exactly the way that you think it will at the onset. That doesn't necessarily mean it's not for you, especially if it's an opportunity that you've been revisiting or something that you wanted to do in the past that's finally coming back around for you. This is a great time for that. However, just know that the terms are going to be renegotiated. It's not going to be exactly what you think it's going to be at the beginning. There will be disruptions to that. When Mercury stations to go direct around May 14th, this is going to be a time of revisiting a fated karmic transition that is causing you to really have to change things and move into your destiny when it comes to, again, your work, your career path, what it is that you're putting out there into the world at large. And there's still a blockage here, or there's something going on here where there's a power struggle, a control issue, some sort of intensity or a need to be understood on a deep, intimate level in partnership and in a one-on-one connection with somebody. This is not the best time to sign on the dotted line to sign a contract of any kind. Mercury retrogrades in general are not the best for that, and Mercury stations too. But it's almost as if you realize that you need to transform, transmute, or break free and release something in relationships or in a contract or an agreement or a connection with somebody in order to move forward into the path that you were meant to move into when it comes to the impact that you're going to make on the world, when it comes to the career that is meant for you. And it's going to become very apparent through a message or through just a knowing and like an internal, just like your brain finally gets it. For Virgo and for Virgo rising. So for Virgo, Mercury is stationing to go retrograde in your 9th house, and this is a better energy for Virgos. As I mentioned at the start of this video, the earth signs, especially the ones that are not Taurus, are going to be hit a little bit more positively by this Mercury retrograde. And so this is a gentle nudge in the right direction when it comes to aligning yourself with your beliefs, your value systems, your ideologies, the things that keep you in your integrity. And so it's like your understanding of the world, your worldview has been changing dramatically over the past few years, not just over the past 1.5 to 2 years, but over the past like several years since we've had Uranus in Taurus. I think 2018 is when that moved in there. And so you are going through a period of radical transformation where you are aligning yourself, your goals, your desires, your direction in life with the new value systems that are a little bit unusual or outside of the box. Normally, you're more conventional in the way that you think and believe and feel about things with that 9th house energy, especially your religious, philosophical, belief systems. Now you're kind of going out there into this radical new area, and you need to align yourself with your new beliefs. This could also be opportunities that come up for you involving higher education, or that come back around for you involving higher education, the pursuit of just knowledge that you gain through experience or through this really deep wisdom from a teacher who really knows what they're doing. This could also be unexpected travel plans that come up for you, or that are revisited where you thought that you weren't going to be able to go, and now all of a sudden it comes back around. I really love this energy, for Virgos in particular. The thing that's a little bit more challenging is that you have Mercury stationing to go direct in a conjunction with the North Node. This is squaring Pluto in the 6th house. This is almost like a work-related conflict or something really intense, or an attachment to a situation, or some sort of power struggle involving your employees or your coworkers. There's something going on here in the area of work behind the scenes that is preventing you from taking advantage of that opportunity that you are meant to move into when it comes to higher education, when it comes to, connecting with your belief systems in a way that is that is like you're embodying it, right? There's something going on here that's preventing you from taking that trip maybe. And it involves either your health, your work, your daily routines, or your relationship with coworkers. It could also involve pets. And so it could come up really intensely. It could cause you to have to transform, transmute, resolve, or let go of something very quickly so that way you can move into the path that you are meant to move into. All right, for Libra and for Libra rising. So for Libra, this Mercury is stationing to go retrograde in your 8th house. The 8th house is the house of death, of course, but it's the house of death and rebirth, regeneration. It's the house of deep-seated fears and anxieties that are tied to the past and not the present. And so a couple of things that could be coming up here for you are like mentally, you could be feeling very on edge and very frazzled because this is in the 8th house. Some of your deepest, darkest fears and anxieties might be bubbling up to the surface, not because they're happening, but because something in your environment, some sort of external stimuli is causing it to, it's just triggering to you in some way. And it's causing you to have to revisit it, to change something about it, to realize that if you're living in fear of this thing from the past that is not relevant in the present, that it's holding power and control over you. And so this is a great time to go into any sort of healing, to revisit, maybe like some sort of therapy, especially like psychotherapy, or even if it's something alternative that really helps you to go deeper and to really understand what's going on that deep, tangible level. This is also a really good time to revisit things like occult studies that you may have picked up and put down. This is a really great time for you to take a look at what your money's doing. And it's going to be apparent that you're going to be needing to make some changes when it comes to debt, when it comes to some investments. There could be a change that comes up or comes back around involving a partner's resources that impacts you in some way. And so all of these things are potentials, but this is a really great time to rebalance your budget, to turn inward, to do some inner work, and to release any fears, anxieties, ties to that type of thing. And then when Mercury actually goes direct for you, this is going to be an interesting one because Mercury conjunct the North Node in the 8th house. That's a little intense, especially when it's squaring Pluto. There could be a power struggle or an issue that comes up or back around involving your children. That could be a big one for those of you who do have children, or just involving children in general. This could be a message that comes up that's very faded that causes you to have to let go or release something, or it could cause you to have to move into a brand new direction. This is almost like, it's like revisiting something that you already knew needed to happen, involving debt or involving maybe a bad business deal or something that just isn't working out for you financially, in order to change it, to shift it, to transmute it, and to move forward into something better that's more aligned. Otherwise, it's kind of weighing on you and it's kind of sapping you of your joy. And that could be a big thing that's coming up for you when Mercury stations direct. But this really is you moving in a new direction that could be very positive for you. It's breaking you free from anything that's restricting you, limiting you, holding you back when it comes to your finances. So if you have like the IRS like lingering and lurking because you have back taxes or there's something going on here that you need to address, this would be the time where it would come up and you would need to address it. Same thing with like loans, like that type of thing. For Scorpio and for Scorpio rising. So for Scorpio, let's see here. So Mercury is stationing to go retrograde in your 7th house, which is the house of relationships, partnerships, contracts, agreements, negotiations, one-on-one connections of all kinds. This is where an old flame or an old connection, an old friendship could come back around in a very radical, strange, or unexpected way. This is where you might have to revisit changes that you need to make in your current partnership, where you realize that something has to give. You realize that you need more excitement, that you need to shake things up a little bit. And now's the time where that's going to come back around. It could also be that you've already been making changes, or your partner has been making a lot of changes, and something comes back around that they started working on, or that came up maybe in passing, or that they wanted to change but couldn't because there were too many blockages. There was too much going on with home, family, property behind the scenes with the two of you, where all of a sudden now that's not a thing anymore. It's not a hindrance, and they're able to move things forward. I love this energy for that. I would also say that this is a time where you should explore and do something new in partnership. Something new that you've not brand new, where it's like, I've never thought about doing this before, but if it's something that you've been thinking about trying with your partner, this could be a great time for bringing that back into the mix. This would also be a really great time, like I mentioned before, for like second chances at a fresh start, or second chances at a new relationship. So it's kind of like you met this person, you went on a date, it was like several months ago, you haven't heard from them, and then all of a sudden they come back up and maybe you start dating again, and it's really exciting and it's good and it was meant to be, but there were blockages that were outside of your control before. When Mercury stations to go direct, this is going to be in a conjunction with the North Node and in square with Pluto. There's something going on here really intense, like an intense message, an intense communication with your partner or involving your partner. It could also be involving a contract, especially a contract related to home or to your family in some way that needs to be addressed. It comes up in a way that's very intense. Psychologically, it's very intense. And it's something that you really need to think about, to look at, and to shift and change so you can move on from that. But this is you moving into a brand new direction in your partnership. But before you do that, there's like this lingering thing going on. It could be involving your roots. It could be involving your literal home and family. It could be involving your early childhood and some sort of traumatic experience that you had, or some sort of difficulty that's lingering from there, that's preventing you from moving forward in a more healthy way in your relationships. All of these things are potentials, and you're likely to know which one is the biggest potential for you and what's coming up, especially if something happened around April 5th-ish, like a few days before and after, that involves these themes. Those might be coming back around. Okay. And then for Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising. So for Sagittarius, this energy of Mercury stationing is happening in your 6th house. This is the house of work, health, and daily routines. Your routines have been very disrupted, not just for the past couple of years, but for many years now, since 2018. It's been hard to kind of get set in any sort of routine. It's been hard to get things kind of going in a structured way. And with Taurus in your 6th house, you actually thrive on, even though you're Sagittarius, you thrive on a certain amount of routine and comfort. And in that, knowing that certain things are stable and that your day-to-day is, has some sort of stability, and you just don't have that right now. But this is kind of bringing that up. It's also bringing up or having you revisit a change that you need to make when it comes to either your health that you already know about, and it comes back up again. And it's like, all right, I finally need to jump in and change my diet. I finally need to start that exercise routine. I need to take those supplements. I need to see that doctor, whatever it is for you. This is obviously not medical advice, but you'll know if this is applicable to you. This could also be the need to revisit an opportunity that comes up for you for work, especially as an employee. So maybe a job offer or opportunity or some sort of contract work comes up for you, and you have to revisit it. You have to actually engage in it this time, or maybe there was a blockage where you weren't able to prior. Maybe it was involving higher education or an educational pursuit where your school was not letting you have the time, or maybe the contract didn't go through or something like that. Now is a time where it'll come back around, and it probably will. This is a time to reestablish old, I don't want to say habits and routines. It's not like it's a routine with your health, but it's like something that you used to do for your health that was really good for you. You have to bring it back into the mix. And it's something that's kind of disruptive or different or unusual or alternative when it comes to health and wellness. When Mercury actually goes direct here, it's going to be in a conjunction with the North Node. It's going to be in square with Pluto. There's something really intense going on here around middle of May involving communication with coworkers, employees, potentially involving healthcare or healthcare workers. This could be involving pets or animals if that's applicable to you as well. But there's an idea, a thought, or a communication that comes in that's very intense that causes you to have to transform, transmute, let go of something, change something in order to move forward in a really positive way with the work that you want to do, with the way that you want to show up in service, and the way that you want your health to look really for the next 18 years, because that's the North Node's energy. It's kind of like you need to pursue this. with Capricorn and Capricorn rising. So for Capricorn, Mercury is stationing to go retrograde in your fifth house, which is the house of children. So if you are somebody who has children, there could be a disruptive influence that's coming back around where it's like you wanted to make this change for your children, with your children, in your relationship with your children, and something was blocking you from actually moving forward with that, probably finances or something financial. And now is the time where you're able to enroll them in that private school or do that thing that you wanted to do, take that trip with your kids, or, whatever it was that was blocking you or that was causing hardship or a hindrance, or maybe you like loaned your kids money and now they finally, unexpectedly, they send you a message and they pay you back when you weren't expecting it. That could be something that could come up right now too. Even if you don't have kids, this could be you revisiting something very unusual, very exciting, very outside of the box that you love to do, that's connected to your heart, that makes you feel just free and liberated and just full of life, right? Because that is that fifth house energy. And so, this could be you going out there. Maybe you used to dance. Maybe you used to go party. Maybe you used to like do some sort of weird hobby that other people thought was very strange and you stopped doing it. Maybe you stopped doing it because they thought it was strange and now you just don't care and you're going to do it. All of those things are potentials, but either way, it's going to be fun. Like this is a fun energy at the start of the retrograde. The second part of the retrograde, especially when Mercury stations to go direct around May 14th, there's a little bit of friction here. However, this is you moving forward to connect with something that is truly yours to connect with, that is something that you are meant to do, that you love, that is fun, that is freeing, that is exciting for you. And so there could be again, it's like a financial blockage. It's like you have to let go of this one last thing, and the thing financially could be mental. With Pluto, it could be having to let go of a mindset or a fear around money that's hindering you from maybe starting that business that connects with your creativity and your passion, from, doing that thing that you want to do for your children or with your children. All of that could be a potential. Also, if you're in debt, that could come up, or if you have somebody who has power and control over you because of finances, that could be the hindrance. But there's an energy here of like seeing it clearly and really knowing what you need to do in order to let go so you can move forward into your path. For Aquarius and Aquarius rising. So for Aquarius, this is happening in your fourth house, the house of home, family, property, real estate. All of these themes will be coming up for you. It's the house of parents. It's the house of early childhood experiences. And so with Mercury stationing to go retrograde in your fourth house, this is going to be a little bit more... there's going to be a little bit more friction and disruption and chaos for you versus some of the other signs, unfortunately, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. There's something that you need to change when it comes to your living situation. There's something that you need to change when it comes to your family dynamic. There's something you need to change when it comes to your relationship with your parents, or some sort of early childhood experience that you have let impact your present reality in some way. All of these things are potentials, and they're going to come up in a big way, and you're going to have to deal with the discomfort that is involved in actually changing it, because the blockages are finally removed. And those blockages were coming from you mostly, where it's your fears, your anxieties, your sense of weight and responsibility that's limiting you from actually shifting or moving to that place or doing that thing, or reconciling with your parents or whatever it is. And so now's the time where you can revisit that and it can come back up for you. When Mercury stations to go direct, it's going to be squaring Pluto, which is newly in your sign. A little intense. This could be, it's not like a dark night of the soul energy truly, unless you have a 0-degree Pluto. But it is an energy of something is coming up in communication that is fated, that is karmic, that is destined to throw you in a new direction. It could be that you get, a message about, this apartment that you wanted, or this house that you wanted to buy is back on the market, or it's on the market for the first time. It's something that you have been thinking about or that has been there, but it hasn't been open to you. And finally it is, but there's something going on here, especially psychologically and emotionally, that could be preventing you from jumping in and doing it. A lot of fear, particularly. And so this is something that you'll have to transmute, transform, work through in order to manifest what you need, in order to move into that new path, because this is kind of the last chance to make those changes there. This could also be a communication that comes in that's very fated and karmic, involving your family. And so it could be that you get a message from someone you haven't heard from, someone who's like estranged, and it's kind of jarring to you, right? Would be that Pluto intensity, and you have to decide what you're going to do with that and how you're going to move forward. And so that could be a big thing for certain Aquarius people. Obviously that's very specific, but it's just an example of one of the many different things that could show up for you. All right. And then for Pisces and for Pisces rising. So for Pisces, this is a lighter, nicer energy than for some of the other signs. It's a nice energy in general. I like this energy. It's disruptive, but I feel like it's like a needed disruption for everyone. Whether or not you want it in the moment, it's like it's necessary. But this is Mercury stationing to go retrograde in your third house, which is the house of communication. It's the house of day-to-day travel. So like your commute. There could be something that comes up very literally that disrupts your commute, or you have to revisit. Maybe you had your car fixed and then it breaks down again and you have to fix it again unexpectedly. Or it could be that you had your eye on a vehicle, but it just wasn't there. Like there's in some areas like shortages on car parts and vehicles and things like that still. And finally it comes back up for you and you're like, oh crap, but it's Mercury retrograde. If it's coming back around, this could actually be a good thing. Just make sure that you have a mechanic look it over, that you get a warranty, all of those things, like triple check everything. But if it's something that you're revisiting, this could actually be positive for you. This could be revisiting a change or a disruptive energy, or a need to change something when it comes to your neighborhood or your connection with your community and your immediate surroundings, where an important message comes up and it makes you realize, all right, we need to shake things up. We need to change things. This could be needing to change something with your HOA, right? That's a third house thing. Or needing to change something with, your parking situation, needing to change something with your relationship with a neighbor. This could be you reconnecting with a neighbor or somebody in your community as well, and having a really important message come through. Yeah, this could just be you having a wild idea also, where it's like you had this inkling about something and all of a sudden it just comes fully formed and you're like, holy crap, I need to do this. Or it could be you revisiting education. This is actually one of the best times when Mercury transits your third house. This is one of the best times to review old learning and educational materials or books that you've already read, because you're going to find stuff that you didn't the first time and it's going to jump out at you and it's going to be extra, extra important. So that's something that you can do when you have a little spare time during this Mercury retrograde as well. But when Mercury stations to go direct, it's actually going to be in square with Pluto. It's in your third house of communication. Pluto's in your 12th house. This to me is like hidden communications or hidden thoughts, something that's been kept in secrecy that is just glaring right out into the open. It's like, now I see it. Now I understand it. Now the message has been made crystal clear and I know exactly what direction I need to move into. And it could be with Mercury square Pluto, it could be things like gossip. It could be somebody trying to control you from behind the scenes or manipulate you in some way. Like those things could be possible, but this is very easily resolved for you. And it's kind of like you already knew in the back of your mind there was something going on here, and it just becomes like blatantly obvious, and you're able to know exactly what you need to do in order to move forward. I should also say that during this Mercury retrograde, you could revisit an old opportunity for travel, for maybe a day trip, or even like long distance travel could be a thing for you. But there's like a travel opportunity or an opportunity for just shaking things up on a day-to-day basis that could come your way during this time period, and so that could be really positive for you as well. And so that is my forecast, you guys, for all 12 signs. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure you like this video. That helps me a lot. Subscribe to my channel. That also helps me a lot. And I really, really appreciate it. And just thank you guys so much for being here and for watching my videos and for sticking with me. I really, really love doing these videos. I love connecting with you all. And so comment down below. Let me know how your Mercury retrograde is doing. And I will see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.